Dex Holloway adjusted his scanner's frequency as he maneuvered through the floating graveyard of twisted metal and crystallized fuel. 3 days had passed since the Battle of Kepler Station, and the debris field stretched for kilometers in every direction. Fragments of human destroyers drifted alongside the geometric remains of Xylurian warships, their angular hulls now reduced to glittering shards. "Anything worthwhile out there?" called his partner Finn Mercer from the cockpit of their modified transport, the Wanderer. They'd been working these salvage runs together for nearly 4 years, ever since Dex left his position as a field medic with the colonial fleet. "Mostly scrap," Dex replied, scanning another piece of debris through the viewfinder. "The big corporations swept through here yesterday. We're getting their leftovers." He paused, watching his scanner's display spike unexpectedly. "Wait, I'm picking up something unusual over there." The object in question appeared to be part of a Xylurian interceptor, its crystalline hull cracked, but still maintaining its distinctive prismatic shape. What caught Dex's attention wasn't the potential salvage value, but the steady pulse showing on his bioscanner, a rhythm too regular to be random energy discharge. "Finn, bring us closer to that interceptor fragment," Dex said, his voice tightening with concern. "The Xylurian ship?" "Dex, even if there's good tech in there, we can't read their systems. Their stuff is all crystalline matrices and bioneural interfaces." Dex continued monitoring his scanner as they approached. The readings were becoming clearer, and his suspicions were confirmed. There's someone alive in there. The silence that followed stretched for several heartbeats before Finn's voice crackled through the com. "Come again?" "Life signs, Finn. Weak, but definitely there. Someone's trapped inside that wreck." "Someone Xylurian, you mean?" "Dex, need I remind you these are the same beings who glassed 3 of our colonies last month? Who've been systematically wiping out human settlements for 5 years?" Dex stared at the broken vessel, watching his scanner confirm what his medic training had already recognized. Someone was dying in there. The Xylurians were indeed humanity's enemy, a crystalline-based species whose empire had declared humans a contamination to be cleansed from the galaxy. Every human had lost someone to their systematic extermination campaigns. But Dex had also taken an oath once, long before the war began. First, do no harm. Preserve life where possible. The words seemed almost naive now, yet they'd shaped who he was. "Get me close enough to dock," he said finally. "Dex, this is insane. We should report this to the fleet and let them handle it. By the time they get here, whoever's in there will be dead." "I can't live with that." Finn's exasperated sigh came through clearly. "You're going to get us both killed over some alien who wouldn't hesitate to incinerate you." "Maybe, but I'll get myself killed by staying true to who I am, not by becoming something I'm not." As the Wanderer aligned with the wreckage, Dex could see into the interceptor's cracked cockpit. A figure in distinctive Xylurian bioarmor was slumped over the controls, trapped beneath twisted metal. Even through the damage, he could see the being was female, her crystalline-enhanced armor flickering weakly as its power systems failed. "Docking. Tube connected," Finn announced reluctantly. "But I'm keeping the engines warm. First sign of trouble, we're gone." Dex suited up quickly, grabbing his medical kit and cutting tools. As he entered the damaged vessel, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across surfaces that seemed to shift between organic curves and geometric precision. The air was thick with crystalline dust and the metallic scent of damaged biosystems. Following his scanner, he found her. Zephyra Kane's consciousness returned slowly, like emerging from deep water. The first thing she noticed was the absence of weight. Her bioarmor was gone. Panic shot through her system as she tried to move, only to be met with sharp pain in her ribs. Her eyes snapped open to find herself in an unfamiliar room with soft, curved walls and warm lighting that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. This was not a Xylorian vessel. Xylorian medical bays were stark chambers of crystalline efficiency, designed for function over comfort. This place felt gentle. The surface beneath her was soft, yielding to her body in a way that Xylorian rest pods never did. Strange scents filled the air, not the sterile ozone of her people's ships, but something organic and soothing. The door slid open with a quiet hiss, and a figure entered carrying a tray. Zephyra's training kicked in, instantly assess the threat. Find weapons, plan escape routes. But her body betrayed her, too weak from her injuries to do more than lift her head slightly. The figure was human, she realized, with a mixture of fear and confusion. Tall, with dark hair and gentle eyes that showed concern rather than the hatred she expected. "You're awake," the human said in accented standard galactic. "How do you feel?" Zephyra stared at him, trying to reconcile what she was seeing with everything. She'd been taught humans were supposed to be violent, primitive creatures, driven by aggression and chaos. This one moved with careful precision, setting the tray down slowly as if afraid to startle her. "I am double quotes," she began, then stopped. Her throat was dry, her voice barely a whisper. The human Dex, she remembered from fragments of consciousness during her rescue, immediately reached for a cup on the tray. "Here, drink slowly," he said, supporting her head with surprising gentleness. The liquid was cool and clear, better than the synthesized nutrients she was accustomed to. "You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Your bio-armor was severely damaged, and you had internal bleeding. I had to remove most of it to treat your injuries." The words should have terrified her. Without her armor, a Xylorian warrior was vulnerable, incomplete. But instead of the expected violation, she felt relief. For the first time in memory, her body could move freely, breathe deeply, without the constant pressure of biomechanical interfaces. "Why?" she managed to ask. Dex seemed to understand the weight of that single word. "Because you are hurt, and I'm a medic. It's what I do. I am your enemy." The words came out automatically, part of her conditioning. "Right now, you're my patient," he replied simply. "Are you hungry? I brought some food. It should be compatible with your digestive system." I had to guess based on what I know about crystalline-enhanced biology. Zephyra watched him carefully as he described the food, some kind of protein synthesis that he'd modified to accommodate her species' nutritional needs. He'd researched her biology not to find weaknesses, but to help her heal. The concept was so foreign to her experience that she couldn't process it. "What is your designation?" she asked, using the formal term from her military training. "My name is Dex Holloway," he said. "What should I call you?" Names. Among her people, names were tactical information, given only to trusted allies or extracted from prisoners. Yet this human offered his freely and asked for hers, as if it were a gift to be shared. "Zephyra Kane, 3rd Reconnaissance Wing, Imperial Fleet," she recited automatically. "Zephyra," Dex repeated, and somehow the way he said it made it sound different. Not like a military designation, but like something beautiful. "That's a lovely name." No one had ever called her name lovely. In Xylorian culture, names were functional identifiers. Beauty was irrelevant, sometimes even seen as a distraction from duty. She didn't know how to respond to his comment, so she said nothing. Over the next few hours, Dex returned regularly to check on her healing. Each visit brought something new: fresh water, different foods, even something he called music that filled the room with harmonious sounds unlike anything. In her experience, Xylorian audio was all functional communication tones, battle signals, efficiency indicators. This human music seemed to exist purely for the pleasure of listening. "Why do you create sounds with no purpose?" she asked during one visit. Dex smiled. "Music does have a purpose. It helps us feel things: joy, sadness, peace, excitement. It connects us to emotions and memories. Emotions. Another concept her people considered weakness. Yet as she listened to the flowing melodies, she felt something stirring inside her that had nothing to do with military effectiveness or survival efficiency. Something that made her chest warm and her breathing slow. Something that might have been peace. The engine failure occurred during the 4th day of their journey toward human space. Zephyra had grown strong enough to walk around the small medical bay, though Dex insisted she rest frequently. When Finn's voice crackled through the ship's communication system announcing the breakdown, she saw something flicker across Dex's face that might have been fear. "How long until repairs?" Dex asked into his unit. "Could be weeks," came Finn's frustrated reply. "The quantum drive's completely fried. I'll need to fabricate replacement components from scratch." Zephyra set down the book Dex had given her, a collection of human poetry that described emotions and experiences she was still learning to understand. "This delay is not coincidental," she said quietly. Dex turned to her, eyebrows raised. "What do you mean?" "Your ship functioned perfectly until we reached the midpoint of our journey. Now it fails. Either your fleet has found us, or mine has. Both sides will be searching." The implications settled over them like a shadow. Zephyra watched Dex process the danger they were in. If human forces found them, she would likely be imprisoned or executed as an enemy combatant. If Silurian ships discovered her apparent cooperation with humans, her fate would be equally grim. "We should prepare for either possibility," Zephyra said, standing slowly. "There are things you should know about my people, if you must face them." Over the next several days, as Finn worked desperately on the engines, Dex and Zephyra began teaching each other. She showed him how to recognize Silurian ship classifications, explained their tactical formations, and described their rigid military hierarchy. In return, he shared human customs, philosophies, and ways of thinking that seemed to fascinate her. "Your people create art simply for beauty?" she asked one evening as they sat in the ship's common area. Dex had been showing her images of human paintings and sculptures. "Sometimes," he said, "we also create art to express feelings, to remember important events, or just because the process brings us joy." Zephyra studied a painting of a sunset over mountains, something she'd never seen on her homeworld's crystalline landscapes. "Among my people, all creation must serve the Empire's needs. Personal expression is considered ... selfish." "That sounds lonely," Dex said softly. She considered this. Lonely. Another emotion she was learning to name. "I have never been alone. I was raised in group dormitories, trained in squad formations, assigned to team missions. But why, Ys, it is lonely." "What would you create, if you could create anything?" he asked. The question surprised her. No one had ever asked what she wanted, only what was required of her. She thought of the music he'd played, of the way certain melodies seemed to resonate in her chest, like her bioarmor's harmonics, but gentler. "I think I would create sounds," she said hesitantly. "Like your music, but different. Sounds that captured the feeling of floating in space between the stars, where it's quiet and peaceful." Dex smiled. "That sounds beautiful. Maybe someday you'll get the chance to try. Someday." The concept of a future beyond duty and war was still foreign to her, but she found herself thinking about it more often. What would life be like if she didn't have to fight? If she could choose her own path? "Teach me more human words," she said. "I want to understand how you think about things differently than my people do." They spent hours in conversation, and Zephyra found herself sharing things she'd never told anyone: her memories of childhood before military conditioning began, her questions about the endless war, her growing doubts about the Empire's righteousness. Dex listened without judgment, sometimes offering insights, sometimes just sitting quietly while she worked through thoughts she'd never been allowed to voice. In Xylorian culture, questioning orders is forbidden, she explained one day. Doubt is weakness, and weakness is eliminated. What happens to people who ask questions anyway? Bex asked. They disappear, transferred to distant assignments, or sent on missions from which they don't return. She paused, realizing something. I am asking questions now. I have been asking them since I woke up in your medical bay. Does that frighten you? Zephyra considered the question carefully. Yes, but it also feels necessary, like breathing. On the 8th day of repairs, their sensors detected approaching ships. As Finn had predicted, both human and Xylurian vessels appeared on their screens, flying in an unprecedented formation that suggested some kind of temporary truce for this specific situation. They've come for us, Zephyra said, watching the display. Dex nodded grimly. Whatever happens next, I want you to know these have been the most meaningful conversations of my life. You've changed how I see things, how I see the possibility for understanding between our peoples. Zephyra reached out and took his hand, a gesture of connection her people would consider weak, but which felt like the strongest thing she'd ever done. You showed me that there are other ways to live, other ways to be strong. I will not forget. As the ships drew closer, both of them knew their time together was ending. But the seeds of understanding they'd planted in each other would grow, regardless of what came next. The neutral station Haven's Rest was a testament to desperate diplomacy. The hastily constructed facility built at the border of human and Xylorian space for prisoner exchanges and rare ceasefire negotiations. Dex had never seen anything like it. The human section featured familiar curved corridors and warm lighting, while the Xylorian section displayed sharp geometric patterns and crystalline architecture that seemed to pulse with inner light. Commander Brex Tolan paced the human conference room like a caged predator, his scarred face showing the toll of 5 years of warfare. 3 other officers flanked the table where Dex sat, their expressions ranging from skepticism to outright hostility. Let me understand your report correctly, Holloway, Tolan said, stopping to lean over the table. You rescued an enemy combatant, provided medical aid, and spent 10 days in close quarters with her. Now you claim this friendship could somehow contribute to ending this war. Yes, sir, Dex replied, keeping his voice steady despite the doubt he saw in every face around him. Zephyra learned to see humans differently. I learned to see Xylorians differently. If we can change, others can too. Colonel Maya Hendricks snorted derisively. One reformed alien doesn't mean their entire empire will suddenly decide to stop exterminating us. These creatures have wiped out entire colonies, Holloway. They've shown no mercy, no compassion, no willingness to coexist. Because they've been taught that we're monsters, Dex said. Just like we've been taught that they're monsters. But Zephyra isn't a monster. She's a person who's conditioned to fight, just like our soldiers are. Across the station's divide. In the geometric precision of the Xylorian conference chamber, Zephyra knelt before War Marshal Vex Kron and 2 other members of the Imperial High Command. The crystalline walls seemed to amplify the cold disapproval radiating from her superiors. Unit Zephyra Kane. Vex Kron's voice resonated with mechanical precision, his bio-armor translating his emotional state into visible light patterns of displeasure. You have violated fundamental protocols by allowing yourself to be captured alive and subsequently cooperating with the human contamination. I was dying when the human found me, Zephyra replied, maintaining the formal posture despite the pain. In her still healing ribs, he preserved my life when he could have left me to terminate naturally. Preferable to the contamination you now carry, interjected Sub-Marshal Kex Neath, her armor flickering with disgust patterns. You speak of the human as if it were a rational being rather than a destructive parasite. Zephyra raised her head, meeting their glowing optical sensors directly in act of defiance that would have been unthinkable weeks ago. Dex Holloway is rational. He is intelligent, compassionate, and capable of complex thought. He treated my injuries with skill that rivals our own medical technicians. The silence that followed was heavy with shock. No Xylorian had ever compared human capabilities favorably to their own. You will recant these statements, Vexcron commanded. You will submit to memory restructuring to remove the contamination. And you will provide tactical intelligence about human capabilities observed during your captivity. I will not, Zephyra said clearly, the words seeming to surprise her as much as her commanders. Because I was not a captive. I was a guest, a patient, and eventually a friend. Dex shared knowledge, food, and kindness with me freely. He asked for nothing in return except understanding. Back in the human section, Commander Tollin was making his own demands. Even if this Xylorian has genuinely changed, which I doubt, it doesn't matter strategically. We need intelligence, their fleet positions, weapon capabilities, strategic weaknesses. What did you learn that can help us win this war? Dex shook his head. She shared her culture with me, not military secrets. And I don't think winning is the point anymore. I think understanding is understanding. Colonel Hendricks slammed her hand on the table. My daughter died in the Proxima massacre, Holloway. My husband was on the colony ship they vaporized at Kepler Prime. You want me to understand the beings who murdered my family? The pain in her voice hit Dex like a physical blow. He'd heard similar stories from dozens of refugees, seen the casualties in field hospitals, treated the survivors of Xylorian attacks. The war had scarred everyone. I can't bring back your family, he said quietly. But maybe understanding can prevent other families from being destroyed. Maybe it's the only way this ends without everyone dying. Through the observation window between sections, Dex could see the Xylorian conference room where Zephyra faced her own trial. Even at this distance, he could read the tension in her posture, the defiance she was showing to her superiors. She was risking everything for the truth they'd discovered together. Sir, he said to Commander Tollin, I request permission to speak with the Xylorian command structure. Together with Zephyra, we might be able to demonstrate that cooperation is possible. Tollin stared at him for a long moment. You really believe this, don't you? That one friendship can change the course of a war. I believe that every great change starts with someone willing to take the first step, Dex replied, even if it seems impossible. In the Xylorian chamber, Zephyra was making her own request. I asked permission to address the human command structure, alongside my friend, Dex Holloway. Together, we can demonstrate that understanding between our species is achievable. Vexcron's armor flashed patterns of outrage. You would stand alongside the enemy? You would present yourself as an equal to human contamination? I would stand as living proof that we are not so different, Zephyra said, rising to her feet despite the risk. That both our peoples value courage, loyalty, and the protection of those we care about. The war has made us forget that strength can come from creation as well as destruction. The two conference rooms fell silent as both command structures contemplated the unprecedented request. Outside the windows, the debris field from their latest battle continued, its slow drift through space, a reminder of the cost of continued conflict. The choice was theirs to make. 3 hours after the separate interrogations, both command structures agreed to an unprecedented joint session in Haven's Rest's central diplomatic chamber. The room had been designed with careful neutrality, neither human curves nor Xylorian. Angles dominated, creating a space that felt foreign to both species yet accessible to all. Dex and Zephyra sat at a small table in the center, surrounded by a semicircle of their respective leaders. The human delegation included Commander Tolan, Colonel Hendricks, and Admiral Sarah Cross, who had arrived from the nearby Fleet Command. The Xylorian side featured War Marshal Vex Kron, Sub-Marshal Kex Neath, and Strategic Coordinator Zil Vorth, their bio-armor creating shifting patterns of light that reflected their emotional states. "This is highly irregular," Admiral Cross began, her weathered face showing skepticism. "We're here because Salvager Holloway claims to have discovered some kind of breakthrough in interspecies relations." "The human speaks truth," Zephyra said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of addressing enemy leaders. "I was conditioned to believe humans were mindless destroyers." Dex Holloway demonstrated otherwise through his actions. War Marshal Vex. Kron's armor pulsed with disapproval patterns. Unit Zephyra has been contaminated by prolonged exposure to human irrationality. Her testimony is compromised. "With respect, sir," Dex interjected, "what she learned isn't contamination. It's recognition. We discovered that both our species value many of the same things, protecting those we care about, honoring courage, seeking meaning in our lives." Colonel Hendricks leaned forward aggressively. "Pretty words won't bring back the millions your people have slaughtered. Proxima Colony had children on it, families who never threatened anyone." For a moment, the room tensed as old hatred surfaced. Then Zephyra spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "I participated in 3 colony actions. I believed we were eliminating a threat to galactic stability. I never considered that we were ending individual lives, destroying families, causing the same grief that war has brought to my own people." The admission sent shockwaves through both delegations. Sub-Marshal Kex Neath's armor flared with outrage patterns. "You dare express sympathy for enemy casualties?" "I express recognition of shared suffering," Zephyra replied. "Dex showed me human art, human music, human poetry that speaks of love and loss and hope. These are not the creations of mindless destroyers. They are the expressions of beings who feel deeply, who value beauty and meaning." Strategic Coordinator Zil Vorth, who had remained silent until now, spoke with careful precision. "Even accepting that humans possess emotional complexity, this does not address strategic incompatibility. Our expansion requires resources that human colonies currently occupy." Admiral Cross nodded grimly. "And our survival requires those same resources. This isn't just about understanding. It's about competition for finite space and materials." Dex felt the weight of the moment. The fragile bridge he and Zephyra had built was beginning to crack under the pressure of practical realities. Then he remembered something from their conversations aboard his ship. "Zephyra told me about her homeworld," he said. "How beautiful." It was before military industrialization covered it with weapon foundries and training facilities. She described crystalline forests and harmonic caves that sang in the wind. "When did your people last create something beautiful instead of something destructive?" The question clearly struck home. Zil Vorth's armor patterns shifted to what Dex was learning to recognize as contemplation. It has been many cycles since the Empire prioritized aesthetic development. "And when did we last build something that wasn't a weapon or a fortress?" Dex asked, turning to the human delegation. "We're both so focused on fighting each other that we've forgotten how to grow, how to create, how to live for something other." Then war. A new voice entered the conversation, soft, but carrying authority. "Perhaps that's where we begin." Everyone turned to see 2 figures entering the chamber. Nora Vess, a human diplomat who had arrived with Admiral Cross, and a young Xylorian whose armor bore the insignia of the Cultural Preservation Corps. "I am Kilneth," the young Xylorian. Saad, their armor displaying patterns of nervous determination. "I study pre-war art forms of both species. Dr. Vess and I have been developing theoretical frameworks for cultural exchange." Dr. Vess nodded. "We've been working secretly for months, trying to find common ground. What Mr. Holloway and Ms. Kane have accomplished in microcosm building, understanding through shared experience, we believe could be replicated on a larger scale. War Marshal Vex Kron's armor flashed dismissive patterns. Cultural exchange is irrelevant to strategic concerns. Is it? Kilneth challenged with surprising boldness. The war has lasted 5 years and achieved little but mutual destruction. Perhaps alternative approaches deserve consideration. Commander Tolan rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. What are you proposing exactly? Start small, Dr. Vess said. Prisoner. Exchanges that include cultural education. Joint research projects in neutral space. Trade agreements for non-strategic resources. Give both populations a chance to see each other as something other than enemies. Saphira stood slowly, her movement drawing all attention. I volunteer to participate in such exchanges. I will speak to Xylorian populations about what I learned from human contact. Not as propaganda, but as testimony to the possibility of understanding. I'll do the same with human colonies, Dex added. Share what Saphira taught me about Xylorian culture, their values, their capacity for growth and change. The room fell silent as both delegations considered this unprecedented proposal. Finally, Strategic Coordinator Zilvorth spoke. A limited trial program might be theoretically acceptable. Small-scale cultural exchanges in neutral territory with careful monitoring. Admiral Cross exchanged glances with her officers before nodding slowly. We'd need strict protocols, limited scope initially. But if there's a chance to end this war through means other than mutual annihilation, War Marshal Vex Kron's armor pulsed with reluctant acceptance. The Empire will consider a preliminary experimental program. Success would be measured by reduced hostility incidents and improved strategic communication. As the formal negotiations began, Dex and Zephyra found themselves moved to observer status, their role as catalysts complete, at least for now. They sat together, watching their leaders take tentative steps toward a future neither species had dared imagine. Do you think it will work? Zephyra asked quietly. Dex considered the question, watching diplomats from both sides hammer out details. With painstaking care. I think we proved it's possible for two people to find understanding across impossible odds. Whether we can scale that up to entire civilizations, that's the challenge. The first seed has been planted, Saphira said, using a metaphor she'd learned from human poetry. Now we tend the garden and see what grows. Outside the station's viewports, the debris from countless battles continued its eternal drift testament to the cost of conflict. But inside, for the first time in 5 years, representatives of two warring species were discussing cooperation rather than conquest. It was a beginning.